Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of 401 Access Tonight. I'm Joe Carson, your co-host for the episode, Chief Security Scientist here at Thycotic. And I'm really excited for another fun discussion with my co-host, Mike. So, Mike, do you want to give us a bit of an update into what's happening today?
Yeah, Mike Rowan, VP of Engineering and CISO here at Cybrary. Today, we're going to be talking about our favorite free cybersecurity tools. I'll kick us off because otherwise Joe will steal my thunder. But my favorite one, and the one that got me into cybersecurity, really was Burp Suite back in the day. And I can't talk enough about how much that's really helped me as a software developer. Just learning those tricks and tools, how hackers are able to use tools like that. Definitely helps me to understand better how to protect my own services. And then from there, that's what sort of got me involved. And it was shadowing MITRE as they did a penetration test and showed me how to use the tools that really sort of started me down this path towards more of a security mindset. So just definitely wanted to kick off right there because that was instrumental in my foundation a number of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from my experience as well, I couldn't agree more. Burp Suite has been something, it's been in my tool set for years. And it's something it's always a go-to, for vulnerability assessments and websites. So absolutely, and it's one that there's a lot of penetration testers, bug bounties out there, even for troubleshooting. You want to see what's happening in the background. It's a multi kind of useful tool in order to really get to see the communications between clients and web servers and the traffic, and really understand how things work in the background. Because ultimately, that's what hacking is uncovering and trying to understand how things work.
Right. And actually what's really, I thought was funny. So Joe and I were talking about, this episode a couple of weeks ago, like, oh, what should we record next? Like, let's do free tools. Oh, Burp Suite was the first one we both mentioned. Just this past weekend, 2 different QA guys reached out to me, testers, and they're like, hey, do you know anything about Burp Suite? Because I'm trying to use it. I was like, you just walked in my wheelhouse, but, and sort of help them to identify some good resources for how to use it. But I think it can help with, it's not just for application developers, it's not just for pen testing. It's any website technology. It can really be helpful seeing what's going on and, whether you're doing testing or whatever. So
absolutely troubleshooting is key. This is really a lot of tools get built to help you troubleshoot. And that's, from a supportability perspective, and they evolve from there. The only thing about Burp Suite right now is that, of course, it's at that moment in time, depending on how you're using it, it is the crossover between you need to maybe move to the paid version. The community version is great, but I really, really like the extensions and extenders that has there. So actually, you can really take the functionality. You've got to learn that third-party kind of people who's added their code and their scripts to it. Because it becomes very extendable. And at that moment in time, that's where you really start to consider about, you want to get more automation, you want to get more scalability, you want to get more, capabilities and features. And to do that extensions, some of them are paid, some of them are free. And that's really where you start thinking about, well, okay, the communication is great. I use it still quite often in the lab, but when you get into production, it's one of those areas where you have to consider the paid version.
Right. I think that's right. And I think that's I think that's a great model, right? Right. If you're using it for yourself for certain circumstances, the free edition will probably get you most of the way. But as you said, once you start moving into a production system, I think paying for it is you got to support the tool. And I think you get access to those features that you really need in a production like environment. So
correct. Yep. Companies need to make money at the end of the day to invest into them, so, and they do provide, and the functionality they do provide in the free tool is fantastic. So, but they do got to make money, and ultimately that's how they actually make the products better in the future. So Burp Suite definitely up there in one, at least in my top 5 go-to tools that I go to quite often. One of my number 1 up there, it's usually let's say in the top 2, and it saves my neck a number of times. When I was working in infrastructure, doing money markets in the past, it was something that I used, and it saved me so many times. Most people today know it as Wireshark. For me, it goes back to, I was in the times of the Etherreel, when it was even the older legacy term. And even I got to meet Laura, who was the founder and kind of person behind it all. During some of the events I went to, and amazing person. But
Was that
Wireshark for
back when
me,
Ethernet still ran over coax?
possibly it was indeed. Let's say I'm just giving away my age a little bit. That I've been around for quite some time, and I get into it was one of the times I remember using it extensively was I was doing a money markets application, and the problem was that certain transactions were failing. And I had to use, then it was still called, it was Ethereal. And ultimately what happened was it was a problem with sticky bits, that the one connection would come in through one router and would leave out through another one. So it was using load balancing, and it wasn't sticking to the right traffic, right path. And that was causing so much pain and so much problems. And it was getting down into really analyzing the data traffic and understanding about that the sticky bits in the local directories were not working. And finding that was impossible. And it was Ethereal that really made it visible, and it saved a lot of my time troubleshooting and going into the data packets and understanding what was happening. So, and this is, for me, it's a go-to tool almost every time to do packet captures and really understand about how traffic is going between computers, whether you're doing it on the actual device itself, or you're doing it in the man-in-the-middle kind of scenario, so you actually see the traffic from both clients. For me, it is a must tool in your kit in order to basically make sure you understand what authorized traffic, what's expected, analyzing malicious attackers. It's there for doing everything, but it's continuing to expand. I still use it extensively today, but it is definitely up there. I don't know, Mike, if you're using Wireshark often or not, but
I haven't used it. I haven't had the need to use it in a while, but yeah, it was a very powerful tool back when I needed it. I was glad I had it. But yeah, couldn't agree more. It's I think it's in every top 5, and it's somewhere around 1 or 2, 3 in most of those lists. Yep.
Yeah, and it's the one. It's multiple use as well. You can do it for basically understanding about troubleshooting networks, troubleshooting packet loss, troubleshooting like I was doing with the sticky bits and local directors, troubleshooting malicious attackers to see where malware or ransomware is sending to the command and control. It's really it's so many uses, and it's so extensible as well. It's great to be able to quickly analyze about network traffic.
Yeah.
So,
and even as we're talking, one of the things, and I'm not sure where you stand on this, but like, to me, just learning Unix and the command line and what is actually available. It's always, I think, in talking to friends and others when they're trying to troubleshoot problems, and I'm like, well, did you use LSOF or any number of these different commands? They're like, wait, what does that do? It's like, how do you do your job? How like what, like they go out and buy tools or do other things that are just sitting on top of these existing sort of Unix command line tools that you can use. And like, it's not, maybe it's not super extensible for like a production environment for troubleshooting a specific problem though. Nothing beats some of those. So I learning those, I think that's a great place to start. It wasn't even on my list coming in of like, what are the top command line things that I do, but like LSOF and
listing
netstat
open files, netstat,
exactly,
T-Shark, all of those things. That's what that's what you
even just telnetting a port and like, let me see what happens when I start talking to it.
Yes, this is really good. That even just to see basically the banner coming back. I remember even using telnet to the printer port and then typing because you had line out printers.
At University of Maryland, I used telnet to send mail as other people. It was the best way to spoof an email, was just connect to port 25, and if you know the headers, you can spoof an email really well.
Absolutely. No, it's those, the getting into the command line side of things is so useful. That allows you, especially when you're doing network traffic or you're doing burp suite as well, that a lot of those commands allow you to really do those types of things step by step. So you're not going to mail client and it's doing it all automated. You can actually go through one thing at a time in order to really find out what is failing or how it's failing, or just to make sure that something's working as expected. So absolutely, those for me, Windows and Linux commands that I've got the kind of books back on my shelves back here that I sometimes I just go to and just go through them just to see maybe some of the attributes that I can use.
So what, just RTFM for fun?
Yeah, I mean, literally, I know I do. I'm the guy that has, even sitting here, you can see I've got NetMux's operator handbook.
Nice.
And I have my little like flappy ears in my books.
Wow.
So these are things that takes notes, and these are things for quick reference. And that's literally what I do. I go through the books, and I take notes, and then maybe something I can go back to and learn more.
We stumbled on Joe's Bible.
Yeah, we did indeed. So absolutely. Another one of top free tools. This is more of a suite of tools rather than a free tool. Is sysinternals. So Mark Russinovich, and I've read his books in depth. I've got to see him speak many times. I've been using his tools since late 90s, I think. We're using WinInternals. But sysinternals is now, basically, if you're troubleshooting Windows systems or Windows networks or Active Directory, that is the go-to, set of suite. I'm using it for analyzing, malware, analyzing ransomware, doing reverse engineering, checking connectivity, whether you're using things like PSExec, or whether you're using Procmon or Debug View or TCP View, or you're looking at access check to make sure about who has permissions. So for me, that has been something, those tools really expand on a lot of the limitations that Windows has that allows you to really get more insights. So that up there, definitely it's in my top 5, or definitely within the 10. And I still commonly go to that set of tools to do Active Directory troubleshooting, to look at permissions. It can be used by both good actors and bad. It can be used for ethical hacking, it can be used for troubleshooting, and it can be used for malicious activities. And a lot of times, I do find the tools when I'm doing instant response. The attackers have left behind things like PSExec or other types of command tools or access check that they're using in order to do privilege elevation. So for me, it's a vital toolkit, used mostly for good, but again, like most tools, that can be used by bad actors. So sysinternals for me is a vital set of suite of tools that, and again, going back to my support days and troubleshooting days and managing, large networks and infrastructure, this is a tool set that have saved me so many times. Getting into really understanding about what's failing, whether certain handles were causing memory leaks, or CPU problems, or applications causing crashes, and looking at crash dumps. This for me, I can't, Mark, if you're ever watching or listening to our episode, thank you for creating sysinternals. Definitely a must-have in everyone's toolkit.
Yeah, definitely. You were talking about like the tools from bad actors. One of the ones, speaking from a more of a good actors or monitoring perspective, that used time and again is the elk stack. Big fan of. That's a great way to sort of for helping with monitoring and alerting, and sort of on the more defensive side of things. Elastic, Kibana. What's the log? Joe, help me out.
Oh, that's going. I have to search
anyway, whatever.
It's off the top of my head.
I just call it elk stack for like 10, for 5 years or whatever, 6 years. So, but yeah, definitely a tool that we've used here, my last company, so on and so forth, for sort of helping with monitoring, and can't talk enough good things about that. Even if I don't know what all of the letters stand for.
Yeah, I would say Elasticsearch and Kibana, for automation and analyzing logs and doing quick graphics that you can actually pull together, dashboards and so forth. It's invaluable, and it's great for doing a lot of automation and getting dashboards and really being able to customize and scale as you need to. I find it very useful. Absolutely. Yep. Another definite tool, my toolkit, and it's been when we talk about these. Very few have been new, like recently. When we talk about the likes of Wireshark, it's been around since the early 2000s. Sysinternal has been around since the late 1990s. This next one is also the same. It's still heavily used today. For me, is Nmap, and it's really for me to really understand about networks, discovering the networks, checking what ports are opened, checking what connectivity, checking banners, checking for vulnerabilities. Is that kind of all in, kind of multi kind of tool set? It's like, those Swiss Army knives. It's so many capabilities, not just about scanning a network and understanding about latency and connectivity, and also, what's available and what's working and so forth. But again, it, has those multiple capabilities. So Nmap for me, again, is I've got the book on the shelf as well. So
well, I'm curious why you think that, because I have ideas, but like you think about these tools, right? All the a lot of the ones we're talking about have been around for a long time, since
Absolutely.
late 90s, early 2000s, that time frame. Why do you think they last as long as they do? It's an interesting, like, I have ideas,
Yeah.
but I'm just curious what you might think as to why they've sort of stood the test of time, even as we've moved to cloud and we've moved to this and we moved to that. It's, I'm curious.
I think one is the community. I think when you get something that has a community involvement, that really helps, and also when it gets down to really adding significant value that the underlying systems may not be able to provide. So when you look at things like, we talk about Wireshark and we talk about the Nmap, they've got a community around it that's, adding additions, help, even Burp Suite, you've got that community around it. So that's what makes things sticky, and they add significant value. Sysinternals, I think it was around maybe 2006 when Microsoft acquired Sysinternals, around that time frame. But then once it went inside of, it was like 2 or 3 people that was doing Sysinternals, and doing the different tools. And it was some community were helping and so forth. But once it went inside of Microsoft, and they were able to then add more people to building the tools and making more value, it was that community, effort that really makes these being established. And I think that's what it really is they make people's lives better. They have a really ability to be very granular in, solving a problem. And it's a community centric around it, the knowledge and sharing and helping. I think that's what really creates a lifespan.
Yeah, I think so. I think also, I was just sort of thinking also from the perspective of in the end, everything we build is built on top of stuff that existed. And so these tools are the same tools that we use to debug systems back in, then, and everything we build on is still built on those same systems. And so
Correct.
Not only is it, as you said, solving a problem and making people's lives better, which then creates a community, because now everybody's flocking to it, so it gets supported. But at the end, everything we're doing is still not that different from stuff we did a long time ago. It's just now we have layers and layers and layers. And as we add those layers, having those tools that let you peel it all the way back down to the basic, like what are the actual packets?
TCP.
Yeah, exactly.
when you just really get down to the basics, TCP's stack is still the same as what it's been around since the RFC. And you really, network traffic and it's, it's been around, Windows. I know the interface and what looks, the let's say the book cover changes every version, but when you really uncover it, it's still DOS in the background, still NT, it's still this, same, kernels. What they've done is they've extended it and extended and extended it further. So that's why a lot of these tools, even the protocols and things like web clients and servers and so forth is definitely advanced. But Burp Suite has been able to extend those and maintain those updates. So that's why, really is standing the length of time. But absolutely, when you really get to really uncover a lot of the technologies at the basis, the foundation is, I guess it's a bit like, for me, I talk about, car engines, that the car engines, they all still function primarily the same. It's just the additions and the automations and the looks and, the shell around it. But at the end of the day, combustion engine, fundamentally is the same. So I think that's where we get into technology. The look and feel and the efficiency is definitely improved, but the fundamentals in the background is still the same.
Right. So yeah, why don't you? Sorry to.
No, it's
I've heard this a little bit, but I think it's a fun side conversation. But
absolutely, it's interesting as well. Even another one of my favorites that goes to, which is also quite an old tool as well.
I wonder if we had younger people on the show, if we would have newer tools.
Possibly. They might not even know some of the tools we're talking about.
Listen to two old men talk about the good old days.
Which is still, you talk about Metasploit. Metasploit's still heavily used.
Yes.
And I mean, for me, I go to Metasploit to do the automation. It really is a penetration framework. And it really, I think it's written in Ruby and pulls a lot of different, tools in and scripting and so forth and automation. And it's a great penetration framework. I use it for quickness and automation, and I can do things very quickly, and it's very flexible. I still like to, when I'm going through a penetration test, I still like to do it manually to understand how it works. And then once I understand manually, then I'll kind of go and start using Metasploit as the automated way. But I still one of the go-to tools for quick access or running quick exploits. So definitely Metasploit. Again, another tool is Jim O'Gorman. I'm trying to remember the author, but and even Dave Kennedy, who's been, there's a lot of people who's been really, building on top of it and adding to it. But for me, definitely another tool that's been around since the early 2000s. That for me is definitely one of the toolkits in my arsenal of things that is always running and always available to me in the background.
Cool.
But I think it's really important. When we look at a lot of this, it's fundamentally it's troubleshooting, it's systems management, it's automation. Is the things really these tools really are there to make our lives easier, to help us do what we need to do. It's if you want to understand how vulnerabilities work, that's why Metasploit's there. It's really that framework to help provide you the automation to do vulnerability scans to help you make a better secure network and to understand where attackers could expose your infrastructure. So these tools really have fundamental, very critical value to businesses. And have multiple functionalities. So this, I think this is really where, that's why they're critical. And that's why they're probably, if you go to every, let's say top 5 or top 10 list of tools that people use, these are all going to be at least in there. Everyone, I think even script kiddies and newbies in the industry are definitely, they're going to be using the tools that we're talking about. At least one of them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if they're not, then really are they that good?
Yeah, they're probably using a lot more, of the user interfaces, because a lot of these you really get into. What we're talking about is, they're command lines.
Right.
We're fundamentally, driven. There's a few, of course, Nmap has Nmap, interface, but I still use the command line. Sysinternals has user interfaces for some of the tools, but fundamentally, I'm still in the command line. Metasploit command line driven. Of course, there's things like Cobalt and Armitage that really use the user interface of those. Burp Suite probably is the one that is very UI driven, even though there is some command capabilities in there for automation and integrations and so forth. But a lot of these are definitely, LSOF, the things NetStat, all command line driven. And I think that's really where, retro and old school, we like to go into the command prompt, and we like to be able to, to see the granular control and see things as they happen, rather than sometimes clicking the user interface and wait for that little spinning thing in order to do its thing and all the things happen in the background. We like to know what's happening in the background. And that's ultimately why a lot of these tools fundamentally help us and uncover. Same as with Wireshark, it is command line driven in the background. You can do the capture files in the background, but you really need an easy way of displaying it and filtering and searching. And that's why Wireshark itself, the interface is really for that automation and analyzing side of things.
Yeah, I always feel like the GUI is just sort of hiding things from me that I would like, and sometimes that's a good thing, right? I don't need to deal with the details, but most of the time, no, it's actually I feel like I'm just having to type with mittens on. Like, I would prefer just to get down in there when I'm using a lot of the GUIs.
Absolutely. So another tool that I've used heavily, and it's something, goes back probably I've used various ones over the years, but I've started using more regularly for many things. Is we've come in the years where I had so many accounts. Back in early 2000s, I was doing network administration, I was doing server administration, and I had something like 50 to 100 accounts. So I was using spreadsheets and using documents to try and maintain all of those. And back in the early 2000s, I started moving to a password manager. Back then, it was Password Safe was one of the first ones I used.
Oh, I forgot about Password Safe.
So Password Safe, again, it saved me, a lot of times, but also caused me a lot of problems at the same time. So if you locked yourself out of the Password Safe, you're like, oh, and now you don't know any of the passwords.
Right.
So it was always, getting into making sure you maintain backups and you have a master password for many of those. But over the years, I've used a lot of different password managers. But even one from Thycotic, Thycotic has a secret server free. And I think it's really important, for small businesses and medium businesses, is that you really need to move beyond, what I would have used as a password manager for personal use or for, administrator use, to make sure I'm creating complex passwords, that it autofills, and that I've got reports. But I find that now businesses really need to move beyond password managers. And this really means using something like privileged access security. And Thycotic has a fantastic secret server free solution tool that allows, all of those out there that have many accounts, whether you have 100 accounts or 200 accounts, you may have, 5 users, that there's secret server free, which is there, that will really enable you to actually move a lot of the passwords to the background. So you don't have to rotate them yourself. You don't have to manage them. You don't have to create them. And that's ultimately what we need to do is, for those, people who are managing many systems and accounts, you want to move that to the background. You want to be able to focus on what's important to do. And that's ultimately what we like to do is automation. We want to spend the time that we enjoy. I want to spend the time learning. I want to spend the time, growing my knowledge, and I want to spend the time doing the things that are really interesting and the things that are exciting. I don't want to spend my day when all of a sudden there's a compromised account out there, or the company, got basically, compromised and all the passwords, and now you need to rotate everything. And you're going, okay, log into each system, rotate the password, log in, go into Active Directory, rotate passwords. That's a very time-consuming, mundane thing if you have to do that manually. And Secret Server Free allows you to simply, automate a lot of that, give the visibility into which ones you do need to change, provide that disclosure ability, to provide the access in the systems, the autofill, that's what's really important is a lot of these tools, again, what we're talking about is the automation capabilities. That saves anything that saves our time, saves money, and allows us to not do the things we don't like doing. It allows us to focus on things we enjoy doing. And that's why a lot of these tools are successful. And I think that's why, they're up there in our top lists. That's why we talk about them. That's why we enjoy them, is because it saves time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I, can't agree more on the password manager. There's the individual password manager, and then there's, once you get to a business level, like LastPass is a great password manager. They have a business offering, yet it's paid. It's not the same. I think it's awesome that, Thycotic has one that's actually built for businesses that you can start using for free, as opposed to, and not to, I've talked to the CTO of LastPass, of LogMeIn is the parent company. Great guy. I talked to him. I love their product. So I don't want to take anything away from them, but at the same time, it's a great product. Same thing with, I've talked to people from Abine or Abine. They have Blur, which is, I think, really more towards the individual market. But password managers, Joe and I have talked about a bazillion times. Like it's like step zero. Like that's at this point.
It's the fundamental basics that everyone needs to be doing. And I think, that's really gets down to, and, I've been looking at different data breach analyzing over the past couple of weeks. I'm looking at incidents, and every single time you're just like, it really starts with a default credential. It starts with a weak password. And you're just like, can we move beyond that? But we're not going to until actually fundamentally every organization is using a password manager. And absolutely the likes of LastPass, I think they have a good solution. But it really can. I think the big difference between using something like privileged access and password managers is that there's the accountability and responsibility. If you've got people that you want to delegate the accountability to, a password manager is still delegating the user responsible for changing and managing the passwords. It's giving them a tool to do that. Privileged access is really taking that centrally and taking away the need for the user to think about the password, to think about changing and rotating and managing it, and moves it to centrally managed. So, and allows a lot of those integrations. So I think there's definitely place for both solutions in the world. And my goal is that, I would like every organization in the world to be using a password manager. So therefore it makes it makes our job in regards to securing and protecting, that we can actually start building more advanced security programs and more mature programs, rather than always going back to this fundamental weak credential, default password, poor managed, poor hygiene, that leads to a company all of a sudden, having a disaster, catastrophic nature, that their business comes to a halt from things like ransomware.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And if we're doing shameless plugs, I mean, you can come to Cybrary. We're not completely free anymore, but there's still plenty of free content, and where you can learn a lot of this stuff. But
absolutely. For me, that's really important, is that, and there's many cases, there's a lot of offers out there and a lot of good offers, and sometimes, some free capabilities, but education, that's the most valuable tool that we have. Knowledge, we're in a knowledge driven world today. Well, a lot of these tools that we're talking about help automation. It's the education part that, I wouldn't be able to know how to use many of these tools without the people who create the education around them. With Mark writing the books on things like sysinternals, I've went in and I spent days and weeks of reading those and understanding, and that's the only way I can get to really fully understand the capabilities of those tools is the education material. And that's where I spend a lot of time going into for SQL Server and Thycotic. All I do is create educational content. My goal is to help create educational material to share the knowledge, to make knowledge available. And I think that's what's really important, between Thycotic and Cybrary, is that we are really, focused at educating the world, especially around risks and security and technology. And I think that's fundamentally something that, I think it can only be good. So I'm hoping that the audience, a lot of the tools we're talking about today, that they will go and check them out. We'll make sure that, I'll make sure that we get, footnotes in the videos and podcasts so that people can see, references to the tools we're talking about. So for me, going and learning them, and this, education and these tools, if you know how to use these tools, it will also make you more hireable. It will make, as you go to job interviews and people are asking you, if you're in this scenario, how would you maybe solve this problem? And if you have basically, I'm fully knowledgeable in Burp Suite. I know all the functionality and all the capability, I'm trained and I can use it very, very well. That will make you more attractive to employers. So I think that's also an important thing is what really here is that, and these tools are not going away. These are something
I think we've proven that. Yeah. They've been around for a while. I don't see them going anywhere. And to your point with like, what are employers looking for? Like, I know when I'm interviewing candidates, whether it's for infrastructure, in the operations side, software developers, whatever, for me, it's a little bit more meta than do you understand every single feature that thing. Yeah. A good tool, there's no way everything. It's like absolutely for like the layperson, it's like Excel, right? If I ask you how well do you know Excel, if you tell me that you know Excel like a 9 or a 10, I know you don't know Excel. Like there's no way. There's nobody on earth that knows it that well.
There's too many attributes. There's too many flexibility capabilities. These tools are the Swiss Army knives of system administration.
Right, but if you know how those tools are to be applied and the general thing, and then where to go to get more information, like if you say like, oh, I'd use Burp Suite to do some things, I don't know exactly all the flags and all the rest of it. Right. You just need to know what Bible to look in. Right.
That's exactly the point. Is that it's knowing where to get that information. Whether some of the commands and tools we're talking about have awesome help functions. That if you can simply, I spend a lot of my time in Linux man pages because I just can't remember everything.
That's actually, if you want to go really far back to like when I was in college and I started as a mechanical engineer. I didn't start in computer science or doing software development. I was trying to do, I was just trying to write some emails or whatever. And then like the guy across the hall showed me, you can switch into VI. And I was like, what's that? And then, let me show you how to like, now you're on the command line. Like, here's how to find out more information about all these things. So man finger, man this, man that. And you just start building up and, man, like that's the first,
should we go into VI?
VI, I could teach a whole course in VI. I wrote, in college, I actually used VI as a programming language for a course just for fun, like just to show that you actually have enough power in VI. It's with registers.
Intuitive programs I've ever used.
It speaks to me. It's intuitive to me.
That's going. I've got on VI. I've got so many notes.
There's people right now still trying to figure out how to get out of what they accidentally started, and they don't know how to get out.
I started VI 10 years ago, and I haven't been able to exit it and save my file.
I just learned that if I hit Control Z, and then I can kill it.
I can't. I'm actually sitting on my wall to my left is basically a bunch of VI notes.
Oh, really?
It's literally I can't remember everything. I just I do it for quick edits or remote edits, and I learned so much. I think even there's Tom Num Num as well. He does an awesome video on YouTube. He's from UK, and he's great in VI, and definitely in IPsec as well. IPsec I also follow quite often.
They are.
Some of the things they know in VI, you're just like,
I'll send you my card. I have a long time ago, I got the O'Reilly book on VI. By the way, I'm talking VI. I'm not talking Vim and like
Vim is a kind of a nano, and there's so many GS.
It's way too user friendly. So I'm talking hardcore Vim, and like hardcore VI. I even have my Vim set up to only do VI mode.
Okay.
But in any event, so I have the O'Reilly book, and in that book had this like trifold card that just was like a cheat sheet of VI. I will send it to you. I've made copies of it.
I think I've got a cheat sheet. Also,
but it shows it in a very logical way. Anyway, we're going into
the deep. So there's probably a lot of people going, VI, what is
and why is that a security tool? But there's nothing you can't do without VI. I mean, there's nothing you can't do with it.
Exactly. Everything comes with VI these days. But I mean, it is the least intuitive. I have the same once again, I remember I was introduced to it around, I think maybe 1999, 2000 was the first time I got introduced. And I was mind blown. I have notes and papers in my behind me. I've still got printed on my screen here about even using Terminator and TMUX emulators, and then up and above it is the VI commands. I mean, sometimes you're looking for these basically because there's a lot of breakouts, and there's a lot of different automation and replace and dot and insert and but an awesome tool, and it's free.
It's awesome, right? And it is free. Yeah, I mean, it takes its toll on your life, but otherwise it's free.
Absolutely. I think at that point, with VI, we'll have to share some notes. I'll probably start. I think what we'll do is we'll include some of the videos, the backlinks to videos from IPSec yourself, and even Tom Nunham. So we'll definitely make sure we include those in, because I think those are valuable, definitely from educational side as well. But I think, I think we'll leave it at that note.
Yeah, definitely.
Not get into VI more detail. I think I've got some scars of trying to exit it many times.
That's what I said. It takes it's not a free tool. It'll leave its marks on you.
Overwriting the wrong file. There's a lot of pain from that one. But as I think, for the audience, I think hopefully this is valuable. I think, there's nothing more that we can get out there than free tools. Free tools are really where even a lot of people getting in the industry, it's your starting point. It's where you get familiar. These are things that are zero cost. You might just need a computer that will run it. Great educational material out there, great help files, great communities around these. And definitely they will make you much more hireable in the industry by having knowledge of those. So absolutely, Mike, great chatting with you today as always. I think this is going to be another great episode for the audience. And definitely, if you have free tools and you're listening to us, let us know. Let us know what we're missing. And if you are, under the age of like 35 or 40, and there's tools that you're using which are more modern, that are, let's say, recent tools. We'd love to hear about them. Let us know which tools you're using, which are, let's say less than 5 years old.
Right. Now get off my lawn.
So maybe myself and Mike need to learn some new things as well. I'm always interested. So, but absolutely, Mike, great talking with you today. And for the audience, always tune in every 2 weeks. You'll get an episode from us that will basically, we'll have guests coming on every now and again that will be amazing and really add a lot of value to the industry. But we're excited. 401 Access Tonight is getting very popular. We are getting a significant following. So let's hopefully we continue growing that. If you missed episodes, go back and listen to all the episodes. They're always available. Again, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep us informed about what things you would like to hear about. So absolutely. 401 Access Tonight. Mike, awesome speaking to you. And for the audience, stay safe and talk to you soon. Thank you.